Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars turn on. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. The stars turn on.
Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 23 of the Press Box, in association with the unit. So in one sense, it was a good point earned away to Bohs last weekend, but sadly, Drogheda United's 2-0 victory over Waterford on the same evening means that the gap at the bottom is now down to just 3 points again. So 3 of Dundalk's 4 next games are at Oriel, which is a positive, but can they make advantage in that? So we're going to get an idea what's to come for John Daly's side now when they welcome Galway United to the town on Friday night. So before we do look ahead, a 1-1 draw away to Bohs. We've good or bad written down here. Yeah, I'll leave that to you then. Before I'll point out to a few of our listeners before I do have my opinions on it that if we do come across as negative in our defense, it is because it doesn't seem that we are picking up the points potentially that we deserve or that we need to get out of a relegation battle. But I'll let you take it from here anyway, Jim.
Yeah, well, just full disclaimer, I don't miss many Dundalk games, but I was away for this with yourself at the weekend, so wasn't actually at the game, so it's hard to go into the sort of minor details that we normally would, but I suppose, so context of this, we were obviously on a bus coming from somewhere on Friday, and you're probably just on live score or whatever, and it comes through basically that we're losing and Drogheda is winning, and very early stages, and right, okay, they held on to win, and maybe it wasn't an expected win for them. That's somewhat out of our control, but the one thing I will say to put a bit of a positive on it was that it's only the second time all season that we've gone behind in a game and taken anything from it. The other was away to Sligo back in April when Jamie Gullen got a penalty, earned us a 1-1 draw there. I think Brian Gartland and Liam Burns were in charge at the time. It'll probably be best remembered as the night the Noel King news broke.
And also for that, actually, I see about Sligo, my relegation tip seems to be going well. As the boys are currently in fucking European spots now.
I think they're third or something. You really are the jigs. But yeah, so like in that context, when we go behind, we generally don't get something out of a game. So right, you could touch on performance or whatever, and I do believe, just listening to people, watching the highlights, Bohs were well on top. Maybe should have had a couple of penalties. I can't comment because I wasn't there, so I'm not sitting on the fence on them. And maybe to an extent you ride your luck. I think maybe they have a bit of a moan about that, and maybe it's a bit about their defensive frailties as much as anything. But again, you're saying you go behind. We did get a point out of it and probably could have nicked it even if we didn't deserve it at the end. Again, you're looking at the highlights, and the 3 substitutes come on. Mahan, Akiki and Kenny all have really good chances, and okay, we don't take them, but I actually went up on Monday when we got back and had just a bit of a catch up with John Daly, and I was saying, again, trying to be positive, I was saying, like, just because we're playing Galway this week, Galway was his first game in charge back at the end of May when he came in, and there was only 4 starters the other night that would have started in that Galway game, albeit he didn't pick the team that evening. But there's been a massive sort of turnover. But what I would say is the bench does look a bit stronger. We haven't seen Josh O'Connor yet, but obviously he's come in. It's another striking option, and you've maybe a few more options off the bench. Now, that's to put a positive on it. I'm just Keevin Riley from the Argus actually filled in on me on the report, and I just had to read the report before we came in here, and I just picked up a few bits. Just maybe I'll read it out because it probably sums it up from a journalistic perspective anyway. Like, so he said, while manager John Daly was pleased with the draw, viewing it as a gain despite Drogheda United's 2-0 victory over Waterford, um, it is difficult not to feel slightly uneasy about what the remainder of the campaign has to offer. The reality is that Bows are an extremely limited side, and the accumulation of just a 6th point away from home this season should not mask Dundalk's evident deficiencies. The defence seems to have very little faith in Goddard, whose distribution and judgment are questionable, while most of the hosts' offensive joy came down their right flank with Bobby Faulkner and especially Dan Pike way off the pace. Full debut Dundee Dervin was industrious, but for every positive contribution he made an error, many of which put the back four under pressure, while Scott McGill cut a disinterested figure for the second consecutive clash, and it was only when the Scotsman was replaced that Dundalk became competitive in midfield. Now, he did touch on some positives after that in terms of he thought there was decent contributions from the likes of obviously Horgan, O'Kane, Benson, and Amasahoon. But his final paragraph was this could be one that Lillywhites regret not winning. So what he saw, and I'm again only just based on that because he had sent me the report over the weekend. He saw, a good point, but equally maybe worrying signs. Like we were probably got now. To be fair to him, he highlighted him there, and again, it wasn't at the game, and Pike came in for his first start, and Bobby Faulkner, they're in sort of pre-season mode. They were got it. There's no doubt. Just looking at the highlights, that maybe Pike was a bit, out of place for the goal. Their goal from Ross Tierney. At the same time, we don't. There's 11 games from here. I spoke to Josh O'Connor on Monday. You don't have long to make an impact. You don't have long to get up to speed. If it's going to take you 5 or 6 matches, well, that's basically half of what we have left. So, even in the last game in Oriel, the 4-2 win over Drogheda, we weren't wonderful. I'd say we were probably clinical for the first time this season, but it wasn't a great performance in Drogheda by all accounts. In the cup, by all accounts, it wasn't a great one against Bows either. And these are two sides who, we referenced last week the sort of horrendous sort of run, albeit beating Rovers in the cup, that Bows have been on. Drogheda hadn't won a game since beating us the start of May, before that cup game. So I don't want to say it only gets harder from here, but in theory, on paper, it does. And are we ready to step up to that? Are we ready to sort of get dug in? Like, to put up again, I don't want to be all negative. Like, it's great to see Daryl Horgan scoring again. Now maybe a bit of fortune to the goal. To be fair to Golden, he did well. Comes off Alex Grieve and he gets a double nutmeg through a defender and the keeper. But it is 4 and 5 for him now, and he is someone that, again, we would have referenced needs to be putting in. He needs to be putting up figures, and he's sort of doing that at the moment. The goal return is good, and long may it continue, but it's going to need more to chip in, and maybe it does need a bit of a rethink from game to game, and stuff like that. But again, on the face of it, a point away to Bows when you've fallen behind isn't a bad one, but maybe Drogheda's win just sort of, in theory, and I know there's goal difference comes into this, but in theory we could be bottom on Friday night, and that's going to be as long as there's 3 or less points in it, that's going to be the recurrent team every Friday, and you don't want that sort of roulette hanging over you. Now, that said, again, John Daly's looking the other way and he's saying, look, we need to put pressure on Pats. And I think if we win on Friday, we go 2 points behind them and they play on Sunday just with the European fixture. So he's still looking that way. But, I think there's a concern out there that we've shown no sort of, like, we
We won
haven't won.
5 games all season, man.
Yeah, so where's it coming from? And we haven't won back-to-back games in Oriel. Never mind just consecutive games back-to-back, but back-to-back games in Oriel. Because bear in mind, we did win our last game in Oriel 4-2 against Drogheda, but we haven't won back-to-back games in Oriel this season. Again, you go back to last September when we last did that. And at some point, you'd think that record can't continue. At some point you need to, like, I'd say ask a bookmaker. Galway was probably the favourites on Friday. I know the home matches after that are hats and shells, with a trip to Derry, away to Derry in between, and we're probably not favourites for any of those games, and understandably so. But at some point you need to do kind of something like what Drogheda did the other day and upset the odds, because I don't think many people would have backed Drogheda to beat Waterford, but they did, and they're looking again. I was just talking to someone who was at that particular game, and you know we probably inadvertently give them a bit of a working formula, because they weren't great against us in Oriel in the 4-2, but they learned a bit of a lesson from that for the cup game. Put Douglas James Taylor up front with Piero, and okay, the opening goal was a bit of a mistake by the Waterford keeper, but those two will cause defensive problems. They're big. They'll get stuck in. They will score a couple of goals. They've already scored a couple of goals between them, and do we have that? And like that, they've added a defender this week too, and even previously in the window brought in the likes of Alicia Hui at right back. So you'd say have they had a better window than us? Certainly, it's much too soon maybe to judge all our new signings, but at this moment in time, you'd probably have to say maybe
more effective. Yeah.
In terms of short-term impact, because the likes of Shane Farrell is the sort of dogged character that you want in this sort of, battle. And again, now to be fair, our Oriel record isn't bad, but I do think Weavers Park is one of the worst places to go for any side. Like you're talking, don't think Shells have won there this season, for example, and they're top of the table. Shamrock Rovers have a dodgy enough record there over the years. It's just a hard venue to go to, and certainly it's a hard place to go to chase a game, because it's tight and it kind of suits their style of play of in your face and keeping things tight and that. So at this moment in time, and it pains me to say it, they probably look more likely to pick up points here and there, maybe than we would, and maybe we should just be focused on ourselves, and I'm sure that's the message John Daly will give. But from a supporter's point of view, it's hard not to have one eye on Friday night on Drogheda. It's Drogheda Bows in Weavers Park, so a bit of focus on that. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying it probably is a good point, but at some point you need to start producing performances. Now that said, I'll take being battered for 90 minutes on Friday night and you sneak a 1-0 winner. But a bit of a trend and forward momentum of some description would be nice, I think.
Just speaking about that, so we are at home, obviously, as you said, and we're 11-5, and Galway 6-5. So we're at Oriel Park, nearly double the odds, or like just short of double them odds. Like, and that tells you everything about it. Again, the Bows result for me, it is what it is. Like, we are where we are. We're ninth. So is a point away from a team above us decent? Possibly, yeah. Could it work in our favour come the end of the season? Possibly. However, if you have ambition to get out, as I seem to say every week, and I know people take this as a negative approach, but however, at some stage, as you said, we just need to start getting going. And when I say get going, we referenced there the likes of Galway, Derry, Pats and Shells. Like,
Yeah.
so for us to get going, that would be to properly get going. Let's say that's 12 points. I'm talking 6 to 7 points we need out of that. Where's that coming from?
Well, I think this mini period is huge. Like, look, maybe you
Yeah.
can, and I'm not saying write it off, but forget about the Derry away match for a minute. But when you have 3 games at home of the next four, that'll take us up to the end of August. Um, we've only lost 3 games in Oriel all season. We only lost 3 games in Oriel last season, and we only lost one the season before that. So we have been hard to beat there. Now, far too many nil-nils, maybe this year, etc. But just looking at those 3 home matches, I don't know. I think you need 6 to 7 points from them, and that's not easy because, um, at some point, St. Pat's had a good point or a good win in Europe, in the first leg against Vaduz, and Kenny spent. You see Keena coming in this week, who has a record of scoring in this league. Shells for table toppers, because the danger is if you don't pick up a portion of points at this stage, our away form isn't great. And again, you're not writing off these games, but then it's 3 of our next 4 are away from home then, and you've kind of lengthy trips against a Waterford side who've done really well this season despite the result on Friday. You're going away to Sligo, who you know
Not a form side in the league.
yeah, I think they've won
Mm.
4 in a row or something. And okay, you've the Bows game at home then, but then you're away to Galway, and then your 2 penultimate home matches of the season, and you're into deep deep October at this stage, is Derry and Rovers. So, like, and they could be buying for, be it Europe, the title, whatever. Um, and look, on paper, it all looks daunting, and then that that game in Weavers Park on the final night, away to Drogheda, you ideally don't want to, be going there with
Need something.
with a playoff or staying up in the balance. Like, I mean, if it comes to that, it comes to that, and you just have to try and go and win it. But um, it's not a roll of the dice I'd like to throw. So I think, again, not writing off the sort of the latter number of games, but the
This is a
next,
huge period. Yeah.
because 3 of the next 4 are um at home. I think you need to, and then look, we all know what Galway do. They're functional. They're hard to beat. Okay, they don't score a lot, but they definitely don't concede a lot. But they're in a sort of bit of sticky patch at the moment as well, and that they've actually lost their last 4 on the road in a row. Only lost 5 away from home all season, but they've lost their last 4 on their travels. So, um, but does that just give them motivation coming down the road after, losing to Sligo themselves, which, on Saturday night? So, um, I think we'll, by the end of August, it's going to determine,
I think we'll
where
know where
we're
we
at in
are.
term.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether
I
it's
don't think we're
the
there now. We're not there now because I think
no,
there's too many. And by then, I don't know. You probably do. The likes of the additional Bows games will probably have been played by then as well. So it'll probably be a strayer run potentially in, but I think this month, I think the club, and again, I know we are going to talk about this Galway game, but again, from our side, we always do hammer different things or criticize in the sense of trying to make things better and stuff, but the club doing all their 20% off for the game, for like face paint and all this sort of stuff, and different things and all that. I think that's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. Like, it is what it is. Like, if the football is terrible and we're going down, so be it. But, like, the club is the club. Who people, we're all, whoever's listening here is because we support them and stuff. So, like, whether we go down or not, that's irrelevant. So, to give credit where it's due, that's that's a club having initiative to say, right, let's get a few extra people in, and there'll probably be more things for all I know. But I have to say, I just seen the thing, was it today or yesterday, and I just thought, fair play, that's class. And at this stage, you know, that's all they can do. It's small things before kind of bigger plans or stuff can be made. But as a match day experience, but I think for now, I thought fair play. That's brilliant. Now that's something different, and hopefully it will get a few extra lads or ladies into the door, and definitely with the not as many games left and different things like that as well, and with finances, hopefully that does bring an extra few quid into the club as well.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Like I agree with you. It's good to see initiatives, and hopefully it's well backed. It's the minute I say this now, someone will tell me there's a storm due the weekend, but the weather's actually been good this week. So
Mm.
hopefully it remains that way till Friday, and it's a good night. And I know that the Nugalato cart or something is ice cream carts there and stuff like that. So hopefully we're all licking ice cream and picking up 3 points while we're at it. So, but yeah, I know there was a few comments in anyway. So I think as always, brought to you by Malone Financial Services. I think we'll go to them because I think we've definitely probably spoken less about games we both were at. So we did well on that one. So do you want to run through them, or should I, or the comments?
Where is it? Mark Reed said Hikiki and Mahon changed the game when they came on. Both need to start Friday. Gullen needs someone like Hikiki playing behind him for support. Jer Foley said a point gain from Bowes may get us to a playoff, but so lucky as they could have had 3 or 4. We were poor for most of the game. A huge improvement needed on Friday if we are to get a win. Any news on new investment coming in, or as we seem to be way behind other clubs financially? And lastly, Kev Mullen said, any sign of the interview with Brian Ainscough being penciled in? The lack of application for the sports grant has the Dundalk rumour mill in overdrive. It would be good for communication to give supporters some confidence of what's happening off the field and maybe what the long-term club goal is.
Um, yeah, so look, I'll address a few of them just and come in if you've an opinion on them. Yeah, but by all means, Kiki and Mahan did look very lively when they come on, just based on highlights and again based on people talking about the game. The feedback in the draw of the cup match was that Hikiki behind Gullen didn't actually work. Um, but then. So again, just going by what people told me, when McGill went out, Benson went inside along A. Dervin, and that kind of gave us that solid base in midfield and maybe released them a little bit. So maybe it's different strokes for different folks or whatever, and they're still getting up to speed with each other. I still think, based on any evidence I've seen, Gullen has worked better with someone up top beside him. Um, he's he knows Josh O'Connor. They were both at Hibs at one stage or another. So whether that's an option, we maybe talk about him a bit later. But um, yeah, like definitely. But I do say, and again, to be positive, I think we've more options off the bench. Like even Mahan, I think, was someone we were very excited about start of the season. Just then we got a bad injury against Bowes. The first time we played him this season at Dalymount and kept him out for a long time. It just hasn't got going, but he certainly gives you a pace and an outball and stuff like that. And even people like Garbett, who, look really lively on his debut in Tala. Um, I know he did make a brief cameo in the cup game against Drogheda, but he hasn't actually made a squad for the league games either side of it. So, you know, again, I'm not privy to what's happening in training, but it does look like there's one or two more little options to have now. So, Jared Foley did ask about investment, and I suppose that ties in with Kevin's question on the Brian Ainscough interview. I know, again, I was away the weekend, but I know Brian is in Ireland. I know he was at the Bows game. I wasn't. I did text him earlier today just to see, because we'd been in touch last Wednesday. We're recording this Wednesday night, and he did say he'd be over this week. I reached out today and I haven't heard anything back. Now, that doesn't mean I won't, but like I would agree with um, maybe an update would be probably appreciated through me or whatever, just kind of where things are because, and again, we might talk about it after the Galway game, but the grants and applications and stuff did obviously raise its head, and we obviously know, and I did say it a couple of weeks ago that we obviously didn't put in an application for that on this occasion, but there's still, by the time we finish this pod, it'll probably be the 1st of August. Certainly by the time people hear it, it'll probably be the 1st of August. As things stand, we know there's work required on floodlights, pitch, etc. ahead of next season, and even where's all that at. So there's probably a lot of things that people want to know, whether they've a right to know all of them or not. But yeah, I suppose watch this space on that one. Hopefully it'll happen, but the ball isn't really in my court on that one.
Right. Well, before we do chat about Friday's game at Galway, let's hear from our sponsors, The Unit.
Today's episode is powered by The Unit, experts in building innovative products for the betting, iGaming, and sports industries. They're the brains behind building innovative products tailored for those who love the game as much as we do. From software that powers up the betting world to platforms that enhance how we engage with our favourite sports, The Unit is leading the charge. The Unit, a winning team that reminds me of the Kenny era Dundalk in their consistency and results. Proud sponsors of the Press Box podcast. Learn more at theunit.dev.
Right, so we sadly face a side this weekend who are on their best ever run of wins against the Lilywhites in Galway United. John Caulfield's side had claimed 2-0 wins already against Dundalk this season to go along with that amazing 4-0 FAI Cup thumping they dished out to us last September up in Galway. But the Tries are on a sticky run of their own, having lost 2-0 to Sligo Rovers on Saturday night. I don't even know where we got. Like, again, it's funny if you look at the bookies odds, talking to other fans, talking to other people, like, again, not a lot of people are confident, and you're kind of already going, oh, a point's probably a good result here. And at some stage, a point doesn't become a good result. And I do think, like, with referencing the home games, something needs to start now. And I don't care if Galway are on their best run of form and whatever. I don't care if it's Shelburne who are top of the table on Friday night and stats and figures, and you can put all that in front of you. At some stage, our 11 men against another club's 11 men, we need to start picking up 3 points on a continual basis to get ourselves minimum to 8th place and actually start a run and get some progression and start moving forward. And to me, I don't care who it is, but on Friday, people talk about who they've added in the window and stuff in their ex-Ireland championship player and stuff like that, but I don't care. I'm just at the stage where I'm like, right, just for John Daly to put it tactically correct, get the right players on the pitch, have the right desire, and go and beat them, and that's it. At some stage, it has to be like, there's no more excuses here, lads. I don't care. Oh, great performance. I don't care. Go and win the game. And as you said, if we get battled for 90 minutes and get a scrappy goal off somebody's arse, sound. That'll do for me. Like, but we need 3 points.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, look, I think as much as, again, the management, the players won't talk like this, but Bows go to Weavers Park and win 2-0 Friday and we get a point. It's probably a better point than draw to win 2-0, and there's going to be a bit of that. And there's circumstances too. I mean, they get a penalty in opening minute, we have a player sent off, and we get a draw. It's a good point, but I agree with you 100% that at some point you need to, and particularly at home, and given we're more or less in the final run of games here, it's at some point you need to start showing form. Now, to the side's credit, we doubled in our last home match. We doubled the amount of goals we'd scored at Oriel Park this season. We only scored 4 all year up until we scored another 4 against Drogheda. So hopefully we found our shooting boots, and that's going to be crucial. Um, but like, it's a big game for both sides, because I mentioned Galway earlier, like, losing their last 4 in a row on the road. They've kind of slipped. I think they're down to 6th or 7th now. They haven't been maybe in contention for Europe. They're certainly not out of that yet. But again, they need to turn a corner if they want to start um, doing that. So, it's a big game at both ends. And, when you look at the sort of player they've added, it suggests that, I would have said at the start of the year, coming up from the first division, staying up was a tremendous season for Galway, and I think they will do that. So, box ticked in many regards. But when the European places are there for the taking, and it could go to any side really, um, why not go for them? And like Greg Cunningham was a big statement signing. I think Bobby Burns was, he was someone maybe on our radar, more so probably when Stephen O'Donnell and Brian Gartland were at the club. Jimmy Keohane has won leagues and cups with Cork, and had a decent career in the UK junior. Well, we know a bit about him, but they they're a side who, they're at a funny point in their season, because again, the ambition had to be stay up. If they win Friday, they're kind of back on the horse in terms of looking for Europe again. If they're not, that maybe, does it slip away? Their side in many ways very similar to us in that they don't score a lot of goals. They've just scored 19 goals this season. We've scored 18. I think we've scored 10 away from home. They've scored 9 away from home. So, but they do concede a lot less. I think Brendan Clark has 12 clean sheets this season and stuff. So they're just that hard team to beat. But again, it'd be a bit of a statement to go and do it and kickstart what's, like I say, a very important month. You've Ed Erwin coming up against his old club very shortly after a move. I'm sure he'll have a point to prove. And we should mention it. Like, obviously, Josh O'Connor's come in. Haven't seen him yet. Was speaking to him on Monday actually. There's a thin line between maybe confidence and cocky, and I'd say he's confident, rather than cocky. But again, never seen the guy play. Can he add goals? He's probably, look, it was the right thing to do to maybe move Cammy Elliott out. He always tried hard, I think, but I don't think you can go 14 and a half months without a goal and, keep putting your hand up for a place in the team. It was probably the right move. He's already gone back to East Kilbride and scored a couple. And maybe that's just his level and nothing wrong with that. Maybe the mistake, because he only got the 1 goal last year, an equaliser against Cork. Fairly memorable late finish where Pat Hooban got the winner then. But like, I don't know what was going through recruitment's mind towards the end of the year when you let Hooban go and you give a guy who had shown no signs he was going to score goals on a regular basis in this league a new deal. Like, but that's perhaps for another regime to answer. But look, it's a big one on Friday. There's no doubt about it. Again, just speaking to John on Monday, Andy Boyle has a chance of getting back, and I think that could be huge. I think Faulkner and Anna have done, I'd say, done okay, done well, but they're very young, both fairly inexperienced. Maybe an experienced head in there. Not so much with Friday in mind, but for the rest of the season could be huge. And I don't think Dara Keane's too far away either. Won't make Friday now, but maybe that Pats game. And I think we haven't seen much of him, but I think what we have seen, he gives you a lot of drive and energy in midfield. So if you can get them two back, and particularly in Keane's case, they're almost like new signings. And just the final word on signings, because obviously the League of Ireland transfer window closed on Monday, but you can still sign free agents. I don't think John Daly's given up on adding another attacker either, because I know Cammy Elliott went out for maybe O'Connor to come in, but there's still that place in the squad that was left by Kieran McGuckin going back to Rotherham, that was never filled. So again, whether that happens or not remains to be seen. It's a funny one this year with the Euros and stuff. I think even the likes of the Premier League starting maybe a little bit later, around about a week later. So, it could be another few weeks before anything, if anything, comes to fruition there, because I think, and again, John said it himself, it's no disrespect to Dundalk or the League of Ireland, but they'll always hold out maybe for an English side or another team across Europe or whatever. Players will want to play at the highest level, get the biggest wage, but if they've no deals coming, maybe that gives you an opportunity to add. The thing is, we're running out of games. There's 11 left. There'll be 10 left after Friday nights, and it's not an awful lot of time to get up to speed. But if the right person comes along that can get you a few goals, you probably have to take them.
I suppose, like, in regards, you referenced the interview you're potentially going to do with Mr. Ainscough, but again, this week, something that, again, we could definitely go on for about 2 hours about this, but so the FAI announced that 8 clubs had applied for funding under the Large Scale Sports Infrastructure Fund, including Drogheda, whose plans are to develop a new stadium northeast of Drogheda Town Centre, adjacent to the new Port Access Northern Cross route. The proposed site is going to feature a UEFA standard stadium with initial capacity of 4,500 seats, expandable through future development of the north and south stands. So again, starting with one stand and further developing on. The development also includes 2 full-size practice pitches, associated car parking, landscaping, maintenance space, fan zones, and access roads. Galway have also submitted a joint application with Athenry's Swans Hockey Club for a Mountain South multi-purpose sport training facility in Athenry. And we haven't applied for anything. Now, the Drogheda one had been a bit more in the making, and I know they were selling United Park or whatever, and had a bit of potential funds, but there was effort. And again, do you know what? It was funny talking to a few people actually over the last week or two about that. That's a huge bugbear of people right now. So if we did apply for something and it didn't turn up or didn't get granted, blah, blah, fair enough. But it's ambition, it's plans, it's ideas. Whereas what we're left with here is, and again, I'll be that negative worst case scenario guy. But what I see here is, if we go down, the only other team potentially in the League of Ireland, which are part-time now, is Drogheda United, are developing things, are developing stadiums, practice facilities, that other revenue generating things as well, including fan zones and different things like that. Even Galway United, who are another regional side as well, developing so much. Even though their stadium is actually quite good, but a whole sports centre and stuff like that for Galway. I just find, and if as a worst case now we went down, it's hard to come back from all of this if you're so far behind. And what I just couldn't understand from it, and again, only an interview with Brian or whoever else is going to make these decisions will give us reasoning, and maybe there is reasoning. But I believe personally fans deserve to know this, because that, in my opinion, is a below par performance in free application of finance in a time coming up to general elections where governments would kind of be happy to get on the bandwagon of that, where everybody would get behind. I think, again, don't quote me, but 2 weeks out, let's say, from the application finalization date, were we looking for a quantity surveyor or a building surveyor? So there was something that happened, and I know there was a group of individuals potentially that we're talking about. And again, I know nothing about it, but however, nothing was put forward. And the club haven't said anything about it. And at this stage, when you look at the state of Oriel Park, you talk about the practice facilities, it's not good enough. And now, again, we're another year potentially behind. You reference even our floodlights, our pitches that is going to be needed to be done for next season. And nobody knows what's going on. So at some stage in the very, very near future, with results going the way that they are for us, and just say they do continue to get draw, loss, win, draw, and we ended up getting straight relegated or even getting into a playoff, fans want and deserve to know why we're not trying to build on this great club in regard for the future. And when you read all these statements from all the other clubs that have applied, and as I said, we referenced 2 or 3 of them there. Others, I think, Sligo, of course, Sligo, because they have their shit together. I think Finn Harps as well. And we just weren't on the list. And to me, that's not good enough. So at this stage, I do think, I don't know whose question it was about the update, but I think an update is needed and genuine reasoning. And if there is genuine reason, fair enough. People and fans can listen and make their own judgment after that. But as of now, again, it seems we've fallen further behind, which is a huge frustration.
Yeah, and even just I was reading about it today actually. Derry City have put in, along with the council, and an application. Now, it's separate to this because obviously it falls under different jurisdictional guidelines in terms of that they're not in the southern government, but they have 3 options under consideration to replace the pitch at the Brandywell, ranging in costs, I think, was just shy of maybe £600,000 sterling to as high as 1.4 million, depending on what they go for. And then I think Derry are going to stump up an additional sum, probably a 6-figure sum. I just forget, I don't have the article in front of me, but to put in a sprinkler system, which is all designed to help, improve the facility, and help with this was actually noted to help with the style of play, because obviously it's like our pitch helps good football or spray it around and stuff like that. So,
and injuries.
Yeah, look, and listen, outset, I can't answer why it didn't happen. Needless to say, if and when I chat to Brian, it'll have to be asked. What I would say is that, so and I don't know how long these things take, and it is a missed opportunity in my opinion, because I'm not letting them off the hook here, because I think, there's talk about, the country's actually in a decent financial space right now. There's talk of giveaway budgets, there's surpluses in terms of what, is coming in terms of revenue, taxation, etc. So there's money to be given out. We're watching things like the Olympics on our TV screens at the moment, and there's a buzz about sport right now in general, and that's why I think the Drogheda facility, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a Treeda boxing club. There's actually a box. Don't quote me on the name of the boxing club. There's actually a boxing club going to use the Drogheda facility, as you mentioned, there with the Galway one, and I haven't gone through them all, but the Galway one is some way linked with that. The Athenry Swans hockey club, and I know Dundalk had spoken about a possible link up with the cricket club for shared facilities and stuff like that, and I do believe there was at least exploratory talks. I don't know where they're at, because again, I haven't spoken to Brian, but about doing stuff with the YDC, and that's all to be welcomed if and when it happens. But I think that the big thing here, and it's been a bit of a bugbear of mine, and I'm not trying to insult anyone in terms of who's involved here or anything like that, but like, the development group committee was put together in 2022 under a previous regime. Now, to the best of my knowledge, the bulk of that committee is still together. Updates have been few and far between. We don't know, is there loads happening, nothing happening, whatever. And I look at the members of that group at the time, and I'm not going to name them because I'm not trying to have a go with different people. I would say a lot of brilliant supporters, a lot of great fans, a lot of people who are well respected around Oriel, but no one really, to the best of my knowledge, or certainly not many, who would have the expertise to put something like this together. Like the Drogheda application was 179 pages, very, very comprehensive. It requires people like quantity surveyors, architects, people with knowledge of, applications for grants and, above my pay grade as well for what it's worth. But like at some point, and you need to pick your committees with people on them. By all means, have the do-gooders who will add to it. But like, and it's by no means near as important, but like, I was a member of a committee there recently with the club that ran a golf classic, and this is by small fry compared to what we're talking about here. And there was some great people on that committee, and people who went out and brought in fundraising. But the crux of it, right? The crux of it was two men who did the dog work on the day and in the build up to it, and they were Seamus Bailey and PJ Dooley, people who were embedded in a golf club, who knew how to run a golf classic, who knew how to get things going and stuff like that. Yes, the others contributed, there were in many other ways, and I'm not trying to belittle their contribution, but you had two experts there, one of them a former captain at the golf club. This should be the same. We should be identifying the people who, know these processes, who've maybe gone down it before, who are willing to give their time. If they're not willing to give their time voluntarily, how do we pay them? And this is the thing. And for me, Dundalk FC has been a closed shop for too long, and this is maybe historical. I made the point recently even that, like, if you look at and this is again no disrespect to the lads involved and no disrespect to the club they come from, but if you look at our underage setup, 4 of our major coaches in Dundalk FC all came from a Heavenmore. And that's no disrespect to them or where they come from or but it's a very much a closed shop of like people within a similar age group, albeit with good links and, some of them very good coaches. I'm not taking that away from them, but open it up, lads. Get the right people involved. And, it's baffling that, you shouldn't go to the same shopping centre for all your goods in terms of like, are you going to buy?
I think you're wrong about them having a more thing. I think that sounds a lot. I know you don't mean it the way it does, but
and I'm not trying to have a go with them, but
I think you're wrong
for
about
me.
that.
For me, it's and listen, people are completely within their rights to disagree with me, but I think there's been a closed shop element to it for too long. In terms of, and that's not to belittle anyone involved that is involved or wants to get involved. No one should ever be turned away. There should be a role for everyone that can contribute something. But at some point, you have to say, right, if it's financial, let's get an accountant to do it. If it's, something that needs a surveyor, get a surveyor in. There's a reason why if you have problems with your electrics tomorrow, you don't ring me to have a look at it. Get an expert in, get people who know it. And I'm not saying the coaches, they've all their badges, all that. But what I mean is, like, in relation to this, I think a committee was formed and the call out for me, and I'm not trying to, belittle anyone on it or their efforts, but the full expertise required to get this across the line wasn't on it. Now, is there questions for the club to answer in that regard? Perhaps. Until we speak to Brian, we won't know why this didn't happen, how it didn't happen, whatever. To be fair to him, he's probably putting out fires in other areas as well. But you can't but say it's not a missed opportunity, particularly now he's coming in midway through a process here. But this development group was formed in 2002, and they're putting out an appeal for someone like that. Was it 2 weeks before or something?
22, not 02. No.
2022, sorry, yeah. So, yeah. And, I referenced it. They did put out plans, I think, ballpark this time last year, late last year anyway. And I made the point that it looks, great, but it read to me more like a wish list than an actual, here's how we're going to do it. Yeah. Because if you look at, and we just referenced 2 of them today, and the reason, we referenced Drogheda because they're our neighbours, and same council area, and we referenced Galway just purely because literally it came into my inbox today, but also we're playing them Friday night. But first and foremost, they have a site,
Yeah.
and there's at least a right. This is going to go here. This is what we want to put here. Now, listen, maybe they don't get their grants or they don't get their grants in full and can't proceed with everything, but there's at least this is where it's going, and this is what we want it to look like, rather than talking about it wouldn't it be lovely to have 3 extra pitches, and wouldn't it be great to have I'd love to have a swimming pool in my back garden, but it's not realistic. Um, and again, I'm not trying to belittle, and I'm sure it will come across to people that I'm not trying to hammer anyone on the committee. I'm sure that again, they're all well-meaning, great fans of the club, but it's always baffled me because I look around the ground on a Friday night, and definitely people there with expertise who at least asked them, did they want to get involved, and put it to use, because people, can make things happen, and it's amazing what can be done, but it takes a level of you know, qualifications, experience, whatever you want. And look, the question needs to be asked to Brian about that. And I'm not trying to hammer everyone, but I think this needs to be a big lesson, big wake-up call for the club. That development group, by all means, keep it together. But it needs to be added to now that whenever this comes round, be it next year, the year after, I'm not sure the timelines of it, that we have our ducks in a row, that it is the right people driving it. And I don't mean that in any disrespect to people who are clearly putting work in and trying their best, but it's like anything. If a pro will do it far quicker than someone, well-meaning, no doubt, but that isn't familiar with various processes that are required to get these things over land. By the way, just to say that, right, 8 clubs did apply. I don't know if that doesn't mean all 8 will get them, but a bit like buying the lotto tickets, you mightn't win the jackpot, but at least you have a chance compared to the guy who didn't. And, we're not in the drum right now. So, it is disappointing, and it has, I wouldn't say angered fans, but it certainly pissed a few people off, because, we did talk, and other people have spoken about, we had a local election there and how important it was to raise these things. And there will be a general election coming up, certainly within the next 12 months, I'd imagine. And, when the candidates come to your door, or you meet them in the street or outside Oriel, and, you can't have a go at them for not supporting a revamp of Oriel, because we haven't supported it ourselves. We haven't put anything forward. So it's not like the place doesn't need it, so look, unfortunately the past can't be undone, but I hope there's at least, whenever Brian speaks to me or whatever about it, that there's at least some sort of semblance of a plan going forward to correct it.
Also, before we go on to the underage stuff, our sponsors, the unit, are actually going to be sponsoring Friday's game with Galway as well. So fair play to Paddy and the lads again for that. And also for kids and, I suppose, moms and dads really that be paying. There's limited spaces now are available in the club's 2 remaining summer camps, which are going to take place on August 12th to 15th and August 19th to 22nd. The camps are ran from 10 a.m. to 1:30 each day, and are open to boys and girls aged 6 to 13. There's further details on the club's website, dundalkfc.com. So as always, before we do go, Jimmy here will give you an underage roundup in association with Jerry McNamee Consultants.
Yeah, bit of a big one this week. So I suppose we'll start off with a good one. Sean Platt was the hero for the men's under-15s team, as they booked their place in the next round of the Michael Hayes Cup with a 3-2 win over Shelburne at the AUL on Saturday. TJ Malloy had put his side in front in the opening minute, but Kevin Manu's double had Shells 2-1 ahead at half time. they look to be on the road to victory until Shea Savage level matters with 4 minutes to go, and that looked like it would take it extra time before Platt popped up with that last minute winner to secure the win. Unfortunately, there was late heartbreak for the men's under-20s in the Enda McGuill Cup as a penalty in the 118th minute of extra time. So UCD claim a 2-1 win in that one. The Dundalk had started brightly with Luke Mulligan firing them ahead on 24 minutes, but Stephen Mohan equalised just before the hour mark to take the game to extra time, and then Roy Lawler popped up with that late penalty to send the students through. And finally on Saturday, the women's under-17s had a 1-0 win over Finn Harps at Oriel Park thanks to Mina McConnell's goal. On Sunday then, the women's under-19s went down 1-0 at home to DLR Waves, with Ashley Meehan scoring the only goal of the game on 56 minutes, while the men's under-17s bowed out of the Mark Farron Cup following a 2-0 defeat away to Bray Wanderers in Ballycorus. The under-14s also took part in an LOI Academy Development Day in Abbottstown on Sunday, with over 220 players from 11 clubs taking part in 15 matches. Obviously, it's a bank holiday this weekend, so the only fixture this weekend is actually on the bank holiday Monday, when the men's under-15s travel to face Longford Town in the league at 2.
Right, well, that is it from this week from us on the Press Box. Again, we want to thank our main sponsor, the unit, as well as associate sponsors, Player Fit, Jerry McNamee Consultants, and Malone Financial Services. As always, if anybody that's watching on YouTube, it's sponsored by Mullins on the Castletown Road. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like as many or comment as many of the videos as you can, and it kind of grows the videos from there. So we will leave you with that. And as I said, Galway suffered heartbreak to Armagh at the weekend. A win that was savoured by many, too many around these parts, I'd say. But let's hope they're feeling the blues again this weekend. We'll talk to you next weekend.
Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars turn on.